Hi there, ladies. Good afternoon. It is Sarah Shipton here from Scrapbooking with Sarah. I'm coming live to you today on Tuesday, November 11 with this week's Technique Tuesday. And I am super happy because I am thrilled with how this layout turned out. Okay, so I'm excited to share a new product with you, which is the Jolly Holly Hybrid Embossing Folder. And I'm going to be demonstrating how I have used this embossing folder to embellish my layout at the top here with this gorgeous holly border. So a little bit of a backstory. Every month I feature a scrapbooking workshop kit and its coordinating suite of products in my crafting world. Okay, and I share this with my customers, my audience, my crafting community. I create a scrapbooking workshop kit, which has the 3 layouts inside the kit. And then I use the leftovers from that kit, plus I bulk up those leftovers with coordinating product from the suite to make additional layouts throughout the month. And I've done the 3 layouts for the scrapbooking workshop kit, which is called Keeping Traditions. I don't have many stickers left over from that kit. I did have some papers left over, and I went to go and order a packet of the designer series paper just on its own, but the product was actually out of stock, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I actually managed to use the leftovers from my scrapbooking workshop kit with the papers, but I wanted a second sticker pack. I couldn't get it. It was out of stock. I'm like, how am I going to embellish this layout? Thankfully, that product has come back in stock now, and all of my duplicates arrived yesterday. So I'm going to be sharing more layouts with you through the month of November, featuring this particular suite collection. But I was like, I need to embellish this. What am I going to embellish this with? And I remembered that my daughter Kayla had this Jolly Holly hybrid embossing folder. So I'm like, I'm going to give this a crack, and I'm going to see how I can embellish my layout with this. And let me tell you, I am thrilled with how this has turned out. So let's get to the layout. First of all, we are creating a double page scrapbooking layout. It is on page 37, pattern 2I from the Reflections scrapbook program. I am going back to basics with an older how-to pattern book that I had on my bookshelf, and this is called the bottom border layered technique. So as you can see here, we've got this gorgeous layered border. Now this is going to run along the bottom of your 12 by 12 inch double page scrapbook layout. You're going to need 2 sheets of either cardstock or designer series paper as your base. I've opted for the white willow here. I did try to bring in some colored cardstock, but it was just too heavy with my photos. So I've gone for just plain white willow cardstock as my base. You're then going to need a sheet of paper that you can cut at 4 inches. You're going to cut that twice because you'll need a 4-inch strip at the bottom of your left-hand side page, and then a 4-inch strip running along the right-hand side of your layout as well. I've gone for cherry cobbler cardstock, which is one of the coordinating colors with this particular suite collection. And do we love the new cherry cobbler nail polish? I'm in love with this color. I think it looks so gorgeous. I'm very, very happy with that. You are also going to need another sheet of either cardstock or paper. I have opted with the gold foil here, so you can buy a packet of the gold foil sheets. You get 2 sheets in the packet. I will I will drop links to all of the products I've used in the comments after I post this video. So I've used the gold foil sheets here, and you're going to need 2 12-inch strips measuring 3 inches in width, which will go on top of your cherry cobbler. You're then going to need a third, either designer series paper or cardstock. I have used the leftovers from my scrapbooking workshop kit. This is a dotted pattern in cherry cobbler. You are going to cut that at 1.5 inches. As you can see, this particular layer is great to use up your leftovers, your stash. You've probably got strips of 12-inch paper that you've cut sitting in a pack or a leftover scrapbooking workshop kit. This is a great layout to use those leftovers up, ladies. So 2 strips here measuring 12 inches in length, but cutting them at 1.5 inches wide. And then you're going to need just a 1/2 inch strip Again, of coordinating paper or cardstock. This was leftover paper from my Keeping Traditions scrapbooking workshop kit. Cutting at 1/2 inches. If you've got some zip strips left over in your stash, so Stampin' Up! Do not do zip strips on their 12 by 12 inch papers. Their paper comes shrink wrapped, so it's already measured at 12 by 12 inches. So there's no zip strip. A zip strip is the extra 1/2 inch strip of paper, like a border that usually sits above the 12-inch sheet of designer series paper, but Stampin' Up! Don't do zip strips. So you've probably got some leftover zip strips lying around that you could use. I've just cut 1/2 inch strips here from my leftover papers of Keeping Traditions. So to align your bottom border, you're going to start with this thicker 4-inch piece. That's going to be 1/4 inches up from the bottom, and you're going to have your sides flush from the left to the right of your layout. The second piece, which is my gold foil, that's going to go right on top of your first piece, and you're going to align that right in the middle. Okay, so you'll have 1/2 inch left over either side. This third piece running through the middle here, this is your 1.5 inch strip. You're going to stick that 1/2 inch from the bottom of the second piece. So you can see that this is 1/2 inch up from my gold foil. And then your 1/2 inch strip, the fourth sheet of paper that you're cutting, this 1/2 inch strip is going to sit 1/4 inch up from your third piece. So you're going to layer those 4 pieces of paper, one on top of each of the other, okay? So that's how you get your bottom border. Now, the really cool thing with this is that you could actually turn your pages like that, and you could have your bottom border running along the left and the right-hand sides of your layout. You could also make your bottom border a top border, and you could actually have the border running along the top of your 12-inch layout. So it's really whatever works best for you. I did follow the pattern. Now, in terms of photos, love this layout. I've actually gone, this is the master pattern with a large 6 by 6 inch photo, but I've opted for the alternate where I'm actually running 6 photos through the middle of my scrapbook layout. And you're going to cut these, they're going to stay, this is perfect for your portrait 6 by 4 inch photos, because you're going to keep the width at 4 inch. But instead of having it as a 6 by 6 inch photo, now, sorry, a 6 by 4 inch, you can definitely keep it 6 by 4 inch if you want, but you're going to cut your photos down to 5 inches. So what I did was basically took, in some instances, a little bit off the top or the bottom, depending where I had the excess to cut. I wanted to keep the star on top of my Christmas trees. Are these just not the most beautiful Christmas trees you've ever seen? These photos were actually taken last year. We went to Sydney for Jai's 20th birthday, and we were there obviously in the lead up to Christmas. His birthday is early December, and we took a day trip out to Taronga Zoo. We caught the ferry from Circular Quay across the harbour, and we went to Taronga Zoo. And then when we came back to Circular Quay, we had a wander around Circular Quay. This is Customs House at Sydney. And then we caught the light rail back around down to Martin Place, and we had a wander through Martin Place. They had this cute little Christmas village, and you can't see in this photo, but Father Christmas was here in this little Christmas hut, and I got a little wave from him. It was very exciting. And they had this beautiful Christmas tree on display in Martin Place. So as you can see, I've got some gorgeous photos. Now, you can see I didn't want to cut this one down. I wanted to keep this one 6 inches. So I've used a flip flap on my layout, and I've stuck that just over the top of one of the 5 by 4 inch photos. So that's okay. You can definitely do that. It doesn't have to align in terms of length with your other photos. It's still going to look fabulous, and I'm just thrilled with how this layout turned out. Now, in terms of the coordinating colors, so sorry, just back to the photo orientation. You can do any photo orientation you want through this middle bit here. When it came to aligning where I wanted my photos to go, you can see here, I kind of eyeballed this because the pattern didn't tell you, you know, how far down from the top of your layout to stick the photos. But you can see here that I've got a bigger gap through here and a smaller gap there. You do whatever works for you. But then obviously I've ended up with all of this space at the top, and that's where I've opted to do my border. In terms of colours, the pink that I've used to embellish my layout is Bubble Bath. This is two-tone cardstock. I have used the original Bubble Bath. If you turn it over, you can see that you've got a lighter side here. Now, Bubble Bath is not one of the coordinating colours that goes with the Traditions of Christmas Sweet Collection. However, because you can see these beautiful pinks and reds in the Christmas decorations, I just had to put the pink in there, and I think it has turned out fabulously. So I have used Bubble Bath to cut out all of my holly pieces. I've done an embellishment border across the top. With some of the remaining pieces, I've done a little embellishment border here, and I actually put it there because I scratched the gold foil paper. You do need to be careful with the gold foil sheets and also the silver foil sheets. So I kind of scratched the paper here, so I've covered this with a little embellishment cluster there so you didn't see it. And then I've used the Bubble Bath here again to cut my journaling box. So these are 2 of the dies that comes with the set. I'll bring them into shot shortly, and I've cut the gold foil on the bottom, the Bubble Bath on the top, just matched that up, and I've used that as my journal box and just popped it in the middle here with, again, some little embellishment cluster here. Okay, so let's get into demonstrating this Jolly Holly hybrid embossing folder. I'm going to take this one out of my memory protector and just pop that to the side so you can have a close-up look here at this gorgeous embellishment cluster. So let's talk about the set. So this is the Jolly Holly dies, and then there's also the Jolly Holly hybrid embossing folder. So when you buy this, it actually comes like that together. Okay, I did make a mistake in sharing yesterday that I've used the Jolly Holly bundle, but I haven't. This actually comes together, the dies and embossing folder. The bundle also includes the stamp set. I do not have the stamp set, so I didn't use the bundle, and I do apologise. Initially, I thought the bundle was the dies and the embossing folder, but no, these actually come as a set together, okay? So you've got your Jolly Holly hybrid embossing folder, and then we've got all of the dies. So you've got the large die, which is going to work in conjunction with the hybrid embossing folder. And then you've got these smaller dies. These are the 2 that I've used to make my journal box. And then you've got the word joy. So I've cut a few of those out in the cherry cobbler cardstock, and I've just accented them on the top of my border pattern, and then used them near my journal box and as an embellishment cluster here. Also, you've got a little star. You've got some or like I guess that's kind of like could be some greenery. I've cut the stars out in the cherry cobbler cardstock, and then I've cut this little kind of greenery, I don't know, that could be like a branch or a twig. I've cut that out in the gold foil because I had a little bit of scrap left over of that. And then I've just built this little embellishment cluster here using a combination of the dies flat on the cardstock, and then also popping up some other ones just to give that some height and texture using my mini Stampin' Dimensionals, and some of them have got the larger Stampin' Dimensionals on them as well. Now, these 2 dies here actually coordinate with the stamp. So I didn't cut these 2 out because this you stamp, this is like a 2 set of some bells with like a bow on the top, and this die would be for an individual holly piece. With these dies, you would need to stamp the image and then cut the die out over the top, or in the reverse order, whichever way you prefer to do it. I haven't used these 2 dies because you can't really tell what the dies are without actually having the stamped image inside the die. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to you. You never know, I may go and buy the stamp set separately, because you can do that. You can buy the dies separate, the die and the embossing folder separate to the stamp set. So I may very well go back and buy that. But let's demonstrate this hybrid embossing folder. Okay, so you're going to need, this is 1 solid die connected as a pattern together. You're going to need your die and your embossing folder together. And I've already cut down my Bubble Bath cardstock ready for this. So this hybrid embossing folder measures at 4.5 by 6 1/4. Now, a good tip with these hybrid embossing folders, and actually any of the embossing folders, you want to run it through the machine with the Stampin' Up logo face up. Okay, so that's how you know you've got it the right way. So you're going to open your hybrid embossing folder and your cardstock's going to go in there first, okay, because this is actually going to get cut. The really cool thing about the hybrid embossing folders is they die cut and emboss at the same time. I know, right? Mind blown. I cannot believe it. So you're going to pop your cardstock in there first of all, and then the die is actually going to sit in this piece at the top, and you want your die piece facing upwards, because when I fold that in half, the piece that's this die is going to cut this cardstock. So you want the raised edge of your die facing upwards. So when I close that together, that's facing down, and that's what's going to cut my cardstock, okay? So I just need to play around with getting this in the right spot. I might have this upside down, and you'll know when it fits in there. We're going to wriggle it around, and there we go. I've got it actually fitting in there now. So the hybrid embossing folder is I guess indented, and then you can fit your die into the embossing folder, okay? So I've just wriggled that around to get that in place, and then I'm going to close that over without trying to mess anything around there, and I've already done that. So let's start again. This was a little tricky when I was doing this, admittedly. So we'll get this die back in place, and then I'm going to grab my die cutting and embossing folder. There we go. All right, that's sitting in there nicely. I'm going to close that over. Perfect, perfect. All right, so I've got my Stampin' Cut and Emboss folder. So these hybrid embossing folders are obviously designed to work with the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Now, because this is a hybrid embossing folder, you are only going to need plates 1 and plates 4 to do this. Even though there's die cutting in here, the cutting is actually going to be done on your embossing folder. So you can see here that the dies are not going to damage your mats in any way, because it's actually going to cut inside the embossing folder. It took my head a little bit to wrap around this product because it was new to me. I'd never used anything like this before in my almost 24 years of crafting. So with your 3D embossing folders, you only need plate 1 and plate 4. And we're going to put the embossing folder and the die in between, like a sandwich, in between plates 1 and 4. And then we're going to run this through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. You can hear that cracking. So that is cutting well. I'm just going to pop that to the side. And when I open this up, oh my gosh, it is like magic. Now, the really cool thing about this particular die is it actually doesn't cut the holly all the way through. So if you look at some of the artwork samples on my website with this product, and I will apologize in advance, I have actually brought this to the attention of Stampin' Up. The graphics for this product in the online store are a low resolution, so they don't actually show up very well. And I have actually brought that to their attention, but it's not been rectified or updated, unfortunately. But the artwork samples that you can see of this hybrid embossing folder in the online store are all cards. So obviously I could cut this as is, and I could include this on a card front. Some of the artwork samples that you see also have these 2 dies. I can cut that out and then cut the word joy, and then they'd actually fit it here inside the pieces that you're punching out. So I could use that as is, maybe as a border pattern. I did think about that, like cutting that down and putting that as a border pattern on my scrapbook layout. You can put that on a card front, but for the purpose, and you can see here, so it's cut the holly, not all the way through, but then it's also embossed this kind of dotty pattern and the inside of the holly pieces as well. So it die cuts and embosses at the same time, which I think is very clever. I think it's a very innovative product. And as I mentioned, I've never used anything like this before, so this was super fun, okay? So what I have done, I've die cut and embossed 3 pieces of cardstock. I've run that through my machine 3 times. So I've cut 3 pieces at 4.5 by 6 1/4, run it through my machine 3 times, and I had enough holly pieces to do this border along the top. I filled all of those in first, and then the leftovers to do the embellishments here. Now, to get these holly pieces out, This was quite therapeutic because we're going to do a little bit of fussy cutting now. To get these holly pieces out, all you're going to do is just a little cut at the sections of the holly pieces where they're not cut all the way through, okay? So it's designed to do that. Don't think, oh my gosh, it's faulty. It's not cut my holly pieces out. It's not designed to. So I've run that cardstock through 3 separate pieces 3 times, and then you end up with all of these holly pieces. So what I did was I went through and fussy cut them all out, and then I even fussy cut out the pieces that have got so my tip to you, I actually wanted to kind of puff these up so you could see the dimension of the pieces. But I learned quickly after doing that the first time not to do that on the second and third time, because it became a little tricky to cut all of these pieces out, okay? So you're going to end up with all of these individual pieces of the holly, which are super cute. And these then formed my embellishments. And I even cut out the pieces that had the straight edges. So you can see here we've got a straight edge piece here, which hasn't cut all the way through. So I did have to just cut the edges there to get those straight edge pieces out. And in fact, I've started with a straight edge piece here to make it look like it was meant to fit there, okay? Very clever, very clever. Now, it didn't look perfect when I fussy cut this out. Obviously, not as good as what it did when I had the die pieces on there. But that's okay. No one's going to know. They're not looking that close at your layout, I promise you. And then I just created this super cute little fun border cluster running across the top. I just put them at different heights using some Stampin' Dimensionals in some areas, or just sticking them flat on my scrapbook layout in other areas. And then I ended up throwing out this leftover piece. I didn't use that leftover piece. I also cut these other smaller pieces out that are flush at the edge of the, basically everything, every holly piece you can see on here, I cut them all out, okay? It was quite a lovely way to spend my Sunday afternoon, I'm not going to lie, when I was making this layout ready for our challenge this week and our Technique Tuesday today. Now, you could very well keep the remaining piece that is left over, and you could maybe stick something over the top of that so you see this little embossed piece. That's entirely up to you, but I just threw it out. I didn't do anything exciting with those. So once I cut all of those out and made my little embellishment cluster along the top here using the Stampin' Dimensionals to get different layers, I also cut out some of the stars, maybe the little branch pieces and the word joys, and then I've just fit them in along the top of the border, again using some Stampin' Dimensionals on those. I also got my new favorite toy. This is the Wink of Stella glitter brush, and I have actually gone along and I have coloured in the middle of the holly pieces. I don't know what we call them. The berries. They're the berries, but they don't look like berries, right? Because they're pink. Oh, you know what would have been really fun to do? I could have actually, I don't have cherry cobbler ink. I could have actually mixed my Wink of Stella glitter brush together with some cherry cobbler ink, and I could have actually coloured that in and made the berries red. Oh my gosh, I just thought of that then. Hey, how fun is that? So, yes, I've used my Wink of Stella brush to just go along and colour inside the berries. Oh, I didn't do it on these ones here. Or maybe no, I haven't. Oh, look, I can show you how to do that here. So I'm not going to press because I don't want too much of this glitter to come out. But I'm just going to use my Wink of Stella brush to colour in over those berries. Look at that. Doesn't that look so cute? And then I have got some extra words of the joy and the little stars. And I have made a cute embellishment cluster here with my journal box. Okay, I'm not applying pressure with this glitter brush because I don't want that to go all over my holly pieces. And then I had some leftover stickers here as well from my scrapbooking workshop kit. So I put the number 4 on here because these photos were taken on December 4. And then with my little blings, I had some of the iridescent foil gems, which are gold. to finish off my layout. So I hope that you ladies have enjoyed watching that Technique Tuesday today. Hi, Doreen. Doreen's joined us live. Thanks so much for coming on. I'm doing this a little earlier today because I've got so many scrapbooking layouts I need to create, so I can schedule all of our weekly scrapbooking challenges to post every Monday while I'm away, ladies, and I'm going to be missing you all. I hope that you enjoyed this week's Technique Tuesday if you are watching back on the replay, and enjoyed me demonstrating the hybrid embossing folder. We did have another hybrid embossing folder called Seaside Wishes, which I really enjoyed using. I'm not sure that one's still yet available, but if you just type in the word hybrid on the search function in the online store, all of the hybrid embossing folders that we may have. I haven't done that myself, admittedly, so I don't actually know if we've got other hybrid embossing folders in stock at the moment. But if you did that search function, all of them would pop up. Have a fabulous week, ladies. I cannot wait to see what you create with this week's scrapbooking challenge. Bye for now.